Now please bear with me people, because once again I find myself on the side of a busy highway. This is a busy one. This is the Midland Highway, and it runs between the city of Ballarat and down to Geelong. For those who are not familiar, they are the second and third largest cities in the state. And if we have a look down here, Ballarat is about 8 k's that way. The town of Buninyong is about 3 k's that way. The Buninyong Cemetery is just over there behind those trees, and we'll have a visit over there because there's a very special resident or incumbent lives there. But the reason we're here is because of this, and I'm sure people driving to and from Geelong, you know how sometimes you drive past an obelisk or a memorial or a historical marker on the side of the road and you go, wonder what that's about. And you know, you're always in a hurry to get somewhere, and you think one day I'm going to stop and have a look at that. So this commemorates the discovery of gold by a gentleman called Thomas Hiscock. This is Hiscock Valley Road, Hiscock Gully Road, correction. And if we have a look at the obelisk, it says 1897, erected by the Borough and Shire of Buninyong to indicate the spot where the gold was first discovered in Victoria by Mr. Thomas Hiscock, August the 3rd, 1851. And you've got the Mayor, the Town Clerk, the President, the Secretary. Erected June 21st, 1897, which was Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee year. So this is Hiscock Gully Road. It used to be known as Hiscock's. Now there's little here but a unpaved rural road, but it holds a fairly important role in both Victorian, local and Australian history. We'll talk about more about that. We're going to move further up the road. There's a couple more historical markers, and we'll talk about why they're important. So we've come a little way up Hiscock Gully Road, and we find historical marker with 2 rock plinths or memorials and a sign giving you a bit of history of what happened. So Thomas Hiscock was born in Berkshire in England in 1812. He married his beloved Phoebe Blanchard in 1833. They had 2 boys, and in 1841 they set out for the new colony of Australia, and they arrived in New South Wales. At that time Victoria did not exist and was part of New South Wales. He initially worked for a farmer at Trawalla in Victoria before moving to the town of Buninyong, where he took up the trade of blacksmithing. In July of 1851, Victoria came into existence, broke away from New South Wales, and was created. And in early August, there's some dispute about the date. Some say the 3rd, some say the 5th. He was out prospecting and discovered gold in and around this area. The discovery obviously sparked interest and brought more miners and prospectors to the area, and shortly thereafter the Ballarat, which is nearby, the Ballarat Goldfield, was discovered. Thomas Hiscock is instrumental in starting the Ballarat Gold Rush for a couple of reasons, and everything that followed from it. The government, having decided that they wanted a share of the newfound wealth, as governments do, instituted a prohibitive mining tax and claim tax, which did not go down well with the miners and prospectors, most of whom were probably pretty rugged, adventurous men. And very quickly, protest and discomfort arose in relation to the tax. And the argument was that if they were going to be taxed, they wanted to be represented. So the familiar cry of no taxation without representation grew up. And it is here in Hiscock Gully Road in late August 1851 that the first of the protest marches was arranged, and it was only attended by less than 50 people. But protests continued to grow over the next 3 years and ultimately ended in the conflict and the bloodshed of the Eureka rebellion, where many people were killed. So these days, this is just a quiet, almost deserted rural road, unsealed. In the day, Hiscock's was a thriving gold mining community. It no longer really exists as a community. There is nothing here apart from residential rural properties, but it's important and its legacy is often forgotten. It says, in this area, Thomas Hiscock, the Buninyong Blacksmith, and his companions discovered gold in August 1851. 2 plaques mark the historic monument which led to the opening of the Ballarat Goldfield. The government could not decide how to reward the men for their discovery. Ultimately, after much discussion, they decided to award them £500 each, which they did, but Thomas Hiscock's joy was short-lived because in 1855, 4 short years later, he caught a chill on the Mt Alexander Goldfield and subsequently died at the age of 43. He left behind 5 children, 2 boys born in England, 3 girls born after he arrived in Australia, and he is buried in the Buninyong Cemetery just across the road, which we'll go and have a look at, alongside his son. I find it interesting that his beloved Phoebe, who survived him by about 40 years, is not buried with him. She lies in the cemetery at Staffordshire Reef, which is about 30 k's from here. So the mining village of Hiscock stretched along the present Hiscock Gully Road, erected by the Buninyong and District Historical Society, 5th of August 2001. It says here, After the discovery of gold at Buninyong in 1851, the government announced the diggers would be charged a large licence fee, and the injustice of that decision sparked public protest here at the diggings. On 26th of August 1851, quote, and this is quoting from the Melbourne Argus, the newspaper, on the 30th of August 1851, "Tonight, for the first time since Australia rose from the bosom of the ocean, were men strong in their sense of right, lifting up a protest against the impending wrong and protesting against the government." There is the Eureka flag, and that has subsequently become a symbol for independence protest against perceived injustice. Also a quote from the Geelong Advertiser of the time: "I was at the diggings listening to many complaints as I went around from cradle to cradle. The influencer had furnished the diggers with the government proclamation number 2 imposing the licence fees. The subject had been greatly discussed and it was resolved to hold a public meeting that very night. It was a novel and exciting scene, and at the entrance of every tent was a blazing fire, which every now and then shot up a lurid flame, disclosing for the moment the dark figures hovering around it, then sinking, and would leave the bush darker obscurity than ever. About 8 o'clock there was an unusual stillness, when from one of the central tents came a voice convening all the gold diggers together. From tent to tent the cry was taken up until it went around the entire encampment. A gun was then fired, and within minutes from 40 to 50 as picturesque looking individuals as ever ornamented canvas assembled around a large watchfire kindled beneath the gloomy stringy bark. One by one, it was commented upon, calmly and dispassionately, but with strong earnestness, until under the canopy of heaven, in the dead silence of the bush, with the pale stars looking down upon them, did those men weigh and ponder upon the act of the government. One man said he was a free, hard-working man, but willing to pay his fair share to the government, but could not and would not pay 30 shillings a month for a licence. Though much applauded, several spoke their feelings and said they would act the same way. It's a burning shame to expect it. It was more than a squatter pays for 20 square miles of land. So, the purpose of the visit is, when you drive from Ballarat to Buninyong or Ballarat to Geelong, on your left, opposite the cemetery, have a look out for that obelisk. That's what it commemorates. It commemorates an important chapter in the history of Australia. The Eureka uprising went a long way towards the democracy and representation of the citizenry. And it started here on this nondescript little gravel road on the 30th of August, 27th of August, 1851. Also note that through here we have what they call locally the sand pits. This was the Imperial Quartz mine. We might get some good drone shots, and then we'll go over and have a look at Thomas Hiscock and his son in their final resting place. And here we are in the Buninyong Cemetery, the Midland Highway just running through the trees there. Well, that car's gone. And we've come from across the road, just behind those trees is where the memorials are. And we come to have a look at this. This is the final resting place, and it's really quite hard to see, of Thomas Hiscock. And it says his wife, Phoebe Hiscock. She survived him by about 40 years. She's buried at Staffordshire Reef. Also, Thomas Hiscock Jr. and his wife Elizabeth. He died at 60, she died at 84. And the final resting place, the final chapter. And I must admit, not a grand grave for such an influential and remarkable character for the role he played. Okay, that's it for this one. On to the next.